The movie opens with young Danny watching his father and older brother Walter play catch. It's Danny's turn, but Walter wants to keep playing. A small argument breaks out between the boys, typical for siblings, before their father insists Danny gets his turn. Danny struggles to catch the ball, and Walter jumps in to help. This frustrates Danny, who storms inside. His father follows him and finds him hiding in the dumbwaiter. He talks to Danny about using inappropriate language and reassures him that being bad at catching at 6 isn't a big deal. Danny compares himself to Walter, claiming his older brother is better at everything. Their father mentions that Danny is actually better at piano, but Danny dismisses it, saying he hates it. He runs off to his room, still upset about Walter being better at everything. Their father reassures him that he's special and has an incredible imagination. Danny, unsure, asks if his imagination is better than Walter's, and his dad confirms that he's unique. Walter is seen trying to play football, but their father says he has to work. It's clear the parents are divorced, and Danny and Walter are going to their moms later. Walter seems to prefer being with Dad. The boys argue again, and their father, frustrated, tells them that sometimes they need to grow up quickly. Later, Danny tries to decide what game to play, but Walter is unresponsive. Danny asks when Walter became so mean, and Walter claims he's just growing up, now a 4th grader with a girlfriend. They agree to play Army Men, but the game quickly turns into a fight. Danny accidentally ruins a picture their dad made, so he runs off to find a replacement. Before he leaves, he wakes her older sister, Lisa, to watch the boys, but she goes back to sleep because she has a date. Danny plays video games, and when Walter tells him to turn it off, they argue. Danny tries to change the channel to SpongeBob, but Walter refuses and watches baseball instead. Frustrated, Danny starts throwing a ball at Walter, but it gets too rough, and they chase each other around the house. Danny hides in the dumbwaiter, but Walter finds him and rolls him down to the basement. In the basement, Danny finds an old game under the stairs called Zathura, a space adventure, essentially Jumanji in space. He brings it upstairs and starts playing it alone, as Walter isn't interested. Danny presses a button, and a card pops out. He can't read it, so he asks Walter for help. The card reads, "Meteor shower, take evasive action." As Walter explains the card, a meteor falls from the ceiling and crashes through the floor. The TV shuts off, the house shakes, and things start breaking in the living room. The boys take cover in the fireplace thinking it's over, but then a giant meteor destroys the TV. Meanwhile, Lisa is upstairs, oblivious, listening to music with her headphones on. The chaos seems to be contained to the living room, but when the boys look through a hole in the ceiling, they realize the house is floating in space. They open the door and see that they're truly in outer space with zero gravity, and even Walter's spit is floating. The boys go to wake Lisa, showing her that they're in space, but she's unimpressed, thinking it's just a prank. She's more concerned about her date, which she believes she's late for. The boys finally convince her to watch what happens when they play the game again, though this time nothing dramatic occurs. Danny and Walter are still immersed in the chaos of the game, and during their next turn, Danny's promotion to Starship Captain seems to be a predictable step in the story. Lisa, however, dismisses their claims, thinking they're just messing with her. That is until the next card turns everything upside down. The card orders sleep mode, and suddenly, Lisa's bathroom freezes, leaving her trapped in ice like Elsa. Walter tries to fix it by bringing fire to melt the ice, but Danny suggests reading the instructions, a cautionary tale for all those who skip the fine print. The instructions reveal a crucial detail. Once they start playing, there's no turning back until they finish the game. Reluctantly, the boys continue. Walter's next card reveals a malfunctioning robot, and while they expect something huge, they get a small robot instead. However, the tiny robot soon grows to house-sized proportions and begins pursuing the boys, labeling them as alien life forms to destroy. Despite narrowly escaping its attacks, the relentless robot continues its chase, even outside the house and back in through the window. Danny finally takes his turn, and the house starts to shift sideways, leaving everything, including their frozen sister, in a state of disarray. The boys learn the house is in free fall, which inadvertently throws the robot down the stairs, allowing them a brief respite. Once the chaos calms, Lisa has rolled down to the bottom floor, frozen solid. Walter braves the danger to recover his Nike shoe from the robot, and the boys return Lisa to her room. Back at the game, Walter is promoted to Fleet Admiral and moves up 4 spaces, while Danny, feeling disinterested, heads to the kitchen for mac and cheese. In a brief moment of calm, the boys argue again, but this time they reach an understanding. Danny expresses a desire for Walter to stop being mean, while Walter agrees to treat him better. They return to the game, and a new card indicates the arrival of Zorgons, alien creatures that begin attacking the house. As the boys try to evade them, Walter receives a card that says reprogram, but it doesn't stop the Zorgons from continuing their assault. During Danny's turn, the card instructs him to rescue a stranded astronaut. They try to hide, but the astronaut breaks in and helps them understand that the Zorgons are heat-seeking creatures. The astronaut's solution is to turn off all electrical appliances and extinguish all fires, which temporarily halts the Zorgon attack. However, the astronaut's next move is to set Dad's nap couch on fire to distract the Zorgons who are drawn to the heat. With the Zorgons gone, the astronaut helps himself to their food, which frustrates Walter. In a moment of authority, Walter demands that the astronaut leave, but the astronaut reveals that Danny is the one who can ask him to go. Danny, though, is grateful for the astronaut's help and decides to let him stay despite Walter's protests. As the game progresses, Walter becomes suspicious, thinking Danny is cheating. Their bickering escalates and Walter moves Danny's game piece back, accusing him of foul play. The next card punishes Walter for cheating, and suddenly, something pulls him up into the air. He nearly gets sucked out through the roof, but the astronaut, whom Walter never wanted to stay, ends up saving him. Back in the living room, Walter blames Danny for everything, while Danny apologizes, but Walter ignores him. Danny takes his turn and the card moves his piece back 2 spaces, putting him 5 turns behind. Meanwhile, Lisa, still frozen, is beginning to suspect something's wrong. As she tries to warm up the house, the Zorgons are inevitably drawn back by the heat. Back at the game, Walter pulls a gold card that grants him a wish. He wishes for a football, much to Danny's dismay. Danny questions why Walter doesn't wish for the game to be over, or for everything to return to normal, but Walter claims the pressure from the astronaut made him make a foolish wish. The astronaut then shares his own story. He, too, once played the game with his brother 15 years ago. Their constant fighting worsened as the game went on, and when the astronaut received the wish card, he made the same wish Walter almost did, that his brother had never been born. This action trapped him in the game, unable to take another turn because it was no longer his turn without his brother. The game wouldn't allow it. Now he's stuck in the game forever, unable to escape. The astronaut concludes his lesson to Walter with a final piece of advice. There are some games you cannot play alone. This realization hits the boys, and they agree to work together to finish the game. However, just before they can continue, a loud bang interrupts them. Zorgons are back. This time, though, they don't come for the boys. Instead, they take the game, leaving the children stranded without their only way back home. In desperation, the boys attempt to create heat, hoping to attract the Zorgons back by burning some wood. Meanwhile, Lisa, still unaware that they're playing a life-or-death game in space, comes downstairs and extinguishes their fire. The Zorgons are indeed drawn back by the heat, and as the boys wait, Lisa begins to panic. She runs into the house to hide, but is confronted by the robot. In her panic, she meets the astronaut, who comforts her, and it's clear she's feeling a connection. She seems to find love amidst all the chaos, a sentiment that would make Rihanna proud. The astronaut and Lisa head upstairs, while the Zorgons wreak havoc throughout the house. The astronaut tries to access the Zorgon ship to retrieve the game, while the boys hide in the laundry room, communicating via walkie-talkie. Lisa, still overwhelmed, finds herself smitten, talking endlessly about the astronaut's eyes and how safe she feels with him. But the boys rightfully can't focus on that. The astronaut returns without the game, and Danny proposes an idea: use the dumbwaiter to retrieve it. The problem is, the astronaut is too big for it, so Danny volunteers to go down instead. Before he does, he asks a question that resonates: do we really need the game? As he's lowered down, the Zorgon appears in the distance, forcing them to stop. Danny, unaware of the situation, shakes the dumbwaiter, causing it to disconnect, sending him into free fall. The noise attracts the Zorgons, who return. Danny, undeterred, finally sees the game box and jumps down to grab it, only to realize the game itself is on the Zorgon ship. Despite the astronaut's warnings, Danny bravely sneaks into the Zorgon ship, narrowly avoiding alien creatures, rescuing the game, but losing the walkie-talkie in the process. When Danny returns to the dumbwaiter and begins shaking it to signal his brothers, the Zorgons notice and cut the rope, sending it crashing to the ground. Danny's misstep causes him to leave a trail for the Zorgons to follow, and soon they are in pursuit. Just before the Zorgons catch him, Walter arrives and pulls him back up, only to find more Zorgons waiting at the top of the stairs. But then the robot returns and grabs Walter by the neck, and the reprogram card works, causing the robot to turn its attention to the Zorgons, destroying them. However, there's one last Zorgon left in the house, and it nearly captures the boys. Just in time, Lisa comes to the rescue, and the boys return to the game. Danny spins and lands a 9, but his card tells him to go back 1 space as he flunks Space Academy. Walter quickly spins afterward, landing a 3. His card says he's hit a time warp and must go back 3 spaces, repeating his last turn. This time, he gets another wishing card, and the shooting star appears. He wishes for the astronaut to have his brother back, and to everyone's shock, Danny appears. It turns out that the astronaut was Danny all along. When Walter made his wish years ago, he wished his brother away, leading to Danny growing up to become the astronaut. The two Danis now face to face, touch and merge, and Walter, now grown, thanks his younger self. In a final act of closure, the two Danis merge into one, and Lisa realizes the uncomfortable truth. She had been crushing on her own younger brother the entire time. Gross, yet strangely fitting. The Zorgon ships are now surrounding the house, firing everywhere, but the boys, united once again, get back to the game determined to finish what they started. After all the chaos and close calls, the boys are one spin away from victory. Danny, feeling like he's messed up, spins a 1 and exclaims, "I suck." But the card has other plans. It suggests, "Would you like to swing on a star?" And miraculously, it moves him ahead 9 spaces, adding up to the 10 they need to win the game. But as they think they've won, the next few seconds feel more like the apocalypse than a celebration. The game spins wildly, and then a card emerges with the chilling words, "Game over. Thank you for playing." Just as they wonder why they're not home yet, a force rips through the wall, pulling Lisa into a black hole. The boys hold on tight as everything around them is sucked in, including their pieces on the game board, which continue moving in the chaos. But before they can process what's happening, Walter is also pulled into the hole. Danny, in a panic, shuts his eyes and screams as loudly as his tiny vocal cords can muster. When he opens his eyes, he's suddenly back home, standing in front of the game with Walter still watching sports. And to Danny's surprise, his hand is on the button that started it all. Walter, almost resigned, tells Danny not to push it. Honestly, after everything they've been through, it's hard to believe it needed to be said, but Danny listens. They check everything around them. Everything is normal again. The boys are best friends now, and when their dad returns, they excitedly try to tell him everything. But as expected, he barely listens. He's just happy his boys are finally getting along. Outside, the boys play catch, and when their mom arrives to pick them up, their sister joins them. They all agree. This whole ordeal is a secret they'll never speak of again. Just before the screen fades to black, a bicycle mysteriously falls from the sky, leaving us to wonder what that means.